Listen to the people, listen to humanity, listen to the Parrot, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot. Listen to the people, listen to humanity, listen to the Parrot, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV. Listen to the people, listen to humanity, listen to the Parrot, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV.
Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you. Are you curious about financial literacy? Then take a look at Professor Anthony Rivecchio's new program on Parrot TV. It's called Financial Focus University. This is an excellent program to learn about questions related to your own finances post-COVID, if how you can manage your money, how you can work with your tax situation. And this is an excellent and informative discussion of financial literacy. With Professor Anthony Rivecchio, your financial problems will be solved at Parrot TV with Financial Focus University. Hello, welcome to Parrot TV's World Inkers Network. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. And today we have Edward Wells, who is a writer from the United States of America. They hold an MFA in creative writing and are an adjunct instructor of writing and literature. They are enamored of the possibility of connection and the cool air that descends into a desert with sunset. Their poetry manuscript, Beyond, is available through Alien Buddha Press, and their fiction, Triptych, is included in the recent anthology Octo Emanations, published by International Authors. Welcome to the show, Edward. How are you today?
Thanks for having me, Dustin. I know that you and I have bumped into one another in various ways in the past, so it's nice to finally meet you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for asking. How about you?
Doing pretty good. So you have an upcoming book, Reassemblances. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of creating that and what the what your directive is with that book?
Sure. Where to begin? So a lot of my writing is procedural, and this particular text has its origin in a quotation from Walter Benjamin. Who, for those of you who probably recognize that name, you recognize that Walter Benjamin developed some thoughts on translation. And there's a particular quote from Benjamin's The Task of the Translator that has always kind of fascinated me. So I'm going to read that, and this is kind of beginning to give you a concept of the exegesis for this particular manuscript, this particular chapbook. Translation does not find itself in the center of the language forest, but on the outside, facing the wooded ridge. It calls into it without entering, aiming at that single spot where the echo is able to give, in its own language, the reverberation of the work in the alien one. So around the time that I encountered these thoughts from Benjamin, I began reading the poetry of Wang Jingyi and Otagaki Rengetsu. And I apologize for my pronunciation of these names. I understand that it's probably not true to the original
Mm-hmm.
But I thought I might attempt some translations. I was working in an MFA program, and in alternating semesters, they sometimes offered some courses on translation. So it seemed like a fun way to engage with poetry,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe something that would be like generative, right? So, I was fond of some of these poems that I was coming across, and what I was able to do, because I don't speak the languages of these poets necessarily. So I was looking kind of to my experience, and I use computational writing from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
And so began working with electronic translators, right? Um, this machine translation began developing some really interesting things. And so I would workshop some of these. And the feedback that I received was, I don't know, it's really different, right? So in regard to the pieces, the feedback was positive. However, what a lot of the people were mentioning, and particularly one of the professors on the faculty, Jen Hoffer, who works in translation, she was pointing out that these weren't translations at all, right? These were sort of original pieces, procedural pieces
Mm-hmm.
that were processing of the existing text, but not should not be considered as translations. And so, considering that guidance that I received from Hoffer and my cohort in the program, I decided that even though there were failures as translations, something interesting was happening, and I pushed ahead. And the product of that process is reassemblances, which are a series of pieces sort of centered around a non-existent life.
Hmm. What do you mean by non-existent life? Is it like something you've imagined, or is there a concept behind that?
Yeah, sure. So there are a number of different categories that we might speak of, but I am attempting to assert a slightly different concept, but moving toward that concept to help us to understand what I'm talking about. Autofiction, or even what some people might call a fictional autobiography or something like this. You
Mm-hmm.
would have maybe some elements from the real, but then kind of with a liberty, so that one can um, maybe explore the themes that are present, or maybe explore even just the language that is presenting itself, not restricted to reality. And so, in this particular text, for instance, I was interested to find, um, of course, Rengetsu and Wang Jingyi. These are poets that were working in Asia, and referring to and describing the flora, the fauna, and the geography there. Yet I was finding a lot of resonance with the geography, the flora, and the fauna, and in the location where I was born, which is in Arkansas. So things like mountains, even cherry trees, and things like this. And so a number of these elements from my own life, my own childhood, seem to resonate within these machine translation processings of the poem.
Hmm.
And so I pulled a little bit from my own life.
Interesting. So, did you ever discover something about yourself in the process that you weren't familiar with?
Sure, I guess I discover new things about myself every day.
Right. Writing is really helpful for that kind of stuff.
It really can be, can it?
See, I always come up with like new concepts. I'm like, wow, I didn't know I'd ever come up with that.
Yeah, there's an opportunity for a lot of kind of deep introspection as well.
hmm So when in the process of so you used like a machine translator for this book, and you assembled it. I guess that's why it's called reassemblances. So, when you sought publishers, I mean, did you go to several different and approach several different publishers, or did you just happen to find the right one at the right time, or how did that work? The discovery of looking for a publisher that would take on such a project.
Right. Actually, I don't know if you will recall, but this was one of those initial instances of our interactions.
Mm-hmm.
I had approached you as editor at what is the name of your press? The
Transcendent Zero Press.
Yes. So I'd approached you, and I approached one other editor that I've worked with in the past. I'll have to admit they were not particularly interested. The chapbook that they had worked on, some of my pieces, some of the texts are very challenging in terms of layout, and in being sort of non-standard, it requires a lot of the editors. And whenever you're talking about like a micro press, that single editor publisher is the only person there. And so whenever they're having to put in a considerable amount of effort and time, it becomes really a drain on their resources in terms of a micro press, because no particular title is expected to sell a large quantity of copies.
Right.
And so that particular editor was not able to invest the time and the energy in this. However, the third editor that I reached out to and was in.
Sorry, my phone's ringing.
Oh, no.
Ignore it.
Yeah. So the third editor that I had any sort of significant dialogue with about the manuscript was enthusiastic. So I was able to find an editor, I guess, in some ways relatively quickly and easily.
Who was the publisher for the book?
Are we talking about this manuscript, reassemblances?
Yes.
The publisher for this is Dumpster Fire Press.
Oh, that's right.
And
Mike Zahn.
the editor is Mike Zahn. Absolutely.
Excellent. So, how long did it take you roughly to put this this book together? I mean, it seemed like it would be kind of like a long scale project,
In some ways, it was. If we were to calculate the amount of time that I was actually sitting there in front of a screen or something, I'm not certain what that would be. But the project itself began back around 2018, and it's just now reaching publication. So, several years.
Excellent. Good luck with it. I think it's an interesting concept. So, how does this particular book relate to some of your previous work?
Yeah, in some ways it's a big departure, and in some ways it's very similar. How to speak of it? So I've already mentioned some of these techniques that I use, say computational writing or procedural writing. These are techniques or approaches that I've used both in my fiction and in my poetry in the past. And beyond that, I've written poetry manuscripts that have a sort of central character. And in the case of poetry, we could speak of it as a single speaker that is the speaker in all of the poems. And these were sort of cross genres between travel writing and poetry. This piece is not the same in that it doesn't have this sort of travel writing approach or even feel, I think. Instead, this piece places the single speaker in a moment of sort of retrospection on home, really.
So, what is Triptych? What is that book concern? You've done that. Seems like that was a pursuit in fiction, as opposed to poetry.
Yeah. So I pronounce this triptych. I'm not certain. I'm hearing.
Neither am I. Who knows? I mean, a word is a word, right? Tomato.
Yeah. Absolutely. We could pronounce this any number of ways, but the triptych is sort of invoking sort of classic visual art mode or modality, in which we've got the 3 panels that often function together to depict a single scene, right? The triptych that we're talking about, the triptych that I generated or wrote, is a prose piece, a fiction piece. I would consider it a short fiction. However, it is part of a larger manuscript. So it is, it's centered around a single character who's narrator at moments as well. And this narrator is a bird.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I used some procedural techniques in that as well, and some computational components, including things such as there's some automated summarizers online that you can find, and some of these, depending on the text that you begin with, can actually generate what I find to be some pretty interesting products. And beyond that, then I massage some of those texts into forms that are potentially, they're texts that may potentially generate an experience of unreadability for some readers, but in some ways, I don't know, it's the voice of a bird. I'm not certain what expectations a reader should place on that, right? We can think of novels like Sweet William, or things like that. But yeah.
How do you develop some of these ideas? Do they just spontaneously occur, or do you do a lot of writing and they just happen to, you just happen to run across like, oh, well, write the voice of a bird, kind of thing? How do you come up with some of these possibilities in your writing?
I think that a lot of, I guess I could say, I don't know. I have a couple of, like, what was that? I'm sorry.
I don't know where my ideas come from either. Sometimes they just happen when I'm in the process.
Yeah, and that's fun.
Yeah.
I do have a sort of a couple of feeds that I think do help me in generating ideas. And these are conversations. So conversations with people, and then also reading.
Definitely for me too.
Right, I teach composition, and so like the classic guidance is always like read. I'm not as maybe adamant about that as some instructors, but I do think that for me, reading has given me a lot to work with and consider.
One of my most interesting books, Knows No End, that came from a text conversation I was having with a friend of mine. And I was just texting him, and we were talking about these girls we wanted to ask out on a date. And I'd made up an entire scenario of like, we should write a book. And I suggested to him to write it. And he says, well, you came up with the idea, you write it. And so I was like, okay, why not? So the character that I created was around the woman I was supposedly going to ask out for a date. Her name is Vera. It's very funny. And there's like this she's a painter. And so I have her painting in this meadow, painting a flower, a hyacinth flower, and I use mythology. So there's a little bit of a convergence there between the reading and the conversation going on. And it was funny because this spontaneously happened. I never thought it would be a book, and it ended up getting published, and it happened. So I was pretty impressed with the process.
Yeah, it also brings to mind, I'm not certain if you're familiar with Tal Lin, a writer, I think based in New York, actually. And one of their novels it includes extensive like chat messages with a friend. So these are fascinating sources for like material and literary ventures.
There's the writer Fadi Judah did a book called Text You, where it was poetry that was all could fit like as a text, and it's a little book, it was like, I think it was a small book that was published. I think Yale University Press published that. But he's a popular writer. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's based here in Houston. And he's a Palestinian American, a really interesting guy. But that was an interesting concept, and I had the same idea. I never enacted it, but then when that happened, when I saw that he did that, I was like, You know what? You stole my idea. I'm going to sue you.
What is the name of this poet again?
Body Judah.
Body Judah.
Yeah, he's a really interesting character. I met him once, and he's a really nice guy. We're going to take a brief break, and we'll be right back with some of your work, and hopefully we'll enjoy that. And so you guys out there watching today, keep watching. We'll be right back with some work from Edward Wells. Do you know that there is a publishing company?
Zani Arewa, Zani Chat Arewa, Gabada Abuja, Iyawo mi, Soja, and I know you waited tomorrow for the Nika, only thing hotter than you, the fire, and I pray Allah save you and I from me.
Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you. Welcome back to World Inkers Network. Today we have Edward Wells, and they're having some video programs here that we're going to play. Which one should I go with first?
Maybe
We have the
first one.
this.
Yep.
You're a gold with the money. You've seen the golden things of you with the money of silver. Good smell, oil Tuesdays, your name, therefore the maidens love you. To smuggle your spices, the oil of your perfume, on the other hand, the ruins of your loss. Into the coven, I, warmongering, against the sun, my mother, a mantra of the vineyards, my longing is not longing. And I do not see that I'm alone, that I am sunbathed, has the country chosen me. The words have taken away the vineyards, my vineyard I have not seen. Thin pastes have a good fragrance, your name is ointment spilled, that's why the country loves you. Your ointment has a good fragrance, your name is like an ointment that has become, so make the country to love you. Has your country insured you in the armies or in the fields of the field, if you wake up love? Have your people set you up in houses and fortresses, or in the alleys of the field, if you provoke them, and if you stir up love until you are crushed? Are kings made from the trees, the leaves? Does the king make kings of the kings of the children? Almost I moved from them, until I found the love of my mind to my mother house. I have passed away from them, even when I have found them, my love is my life, so I went out of the house of my mother.
It's quite fascinating. What can you tell us about that a little bit, if you want?
I'm not certain what to say, really.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on where, what's
the
up?
video with the poem. I mean, it was pretty interesting conceptually. I really liked the combination of the way that you presented the image and with the video, and the poem itself is really creative and interesting, fascinating.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll admit I've had some pretty positive response for this video presentation, or what, I'm not certain what words we would use, but these sort of video presentations of the pieces from this text. Some people, I think that it resonates with them because of the elements that are in the video. So for instance, the town where I'm in Arizona, there's just a number of trains that pass through every day, and it's sort of a way of, well, I don't know if I would call it a way of life, but it's a part of life, right? And it's a part of life that we almost internalize. We don't think about so much, but it's absolutely there. And in a lot of ways, whenever I think about the South, I mean, I wouldn't want to put too much of myself into the text, and I don't want to talk too much about myself. But my dad worked for the Rock Island Railroad when I was a small child. And for a number of people, the railroad has been a part of their lives for quite a while. And there's a nice pace to it as well, and the dinging and the lights. I like the lights, and I like the colors.
Right.
All these things are fun, right?
So I'll play the second one now. Go ahead and do that.
I am a lily of the valley, and a rose between the thorns, yes, between the women. As an apple in the forest trees, my uncle is among the men in the shadow of my precious, a sweet and lovely fruit to wait. I am not a thief, I'm a deep sleeper, as in the thorns between the cheeks, so is my partner among the daughters. Covered in the children's arms, so as among the children I was very smart, and sat down, and my uncle's mouth was broken to my ear. The apples cause a love, patient me, and inside my head, and today, and from birth, I have been sworn to the armies of the fields of mother, wake, and wake up love until the schooling. I am in my hair, my feet, my lips, my love, I am, and love's left hand is under my head, and our gaze will be subjugated. I want safety for you, in the house, in the field, or in the alleys of the field, but I fear if you provoke them, and if you will stir up love, you will be crushed. The report here is coming, skips on the Rockies, bouncing on the hills. My uncle is similar to the deer or to the dust of the reindeer. Here it stands after the stars caretaker of the peeping. My uncle replied and said, "Get up and go." This is what I've seen. He skips on the hills, on the hills. I look at my mind or do the words. It is standing then. We are able to take advantage of it, and we look out from it. My aunt said to me, "You are my partner, my strength." Because here is the autumn, the rain is gone, the pricks were seen when the nightingale arrived, and the voice of the Q sounds in our country. The fig and the vines gave a smell. Get up and go, hand in your voice. Secretly your voice calls your voice. Is evening. We have to hold leaves, small leaves, terrorists and vineyards, and my uncle and I are the bad lilies. Until today, now try the shadows, a great dummy. You have my uncle for the deer or the dirt on the mountains. For behold, it is the words, a transgressor, the successor. The thorns were seen in the land when the sacred became, and the voice is heard in our land of its wings and its swords are given a smell. Go, partner, my partner, and be you. My hand is on the sides in the middle of the stairs. I saw your mirrors. I heard your voice because your voice is strange and your sight is pleasant. Let us take care of the children, the little ones who cling to the vineyards, and my uncle and I who trembled in the thorns. The day of the day is the day of the day, and the words have taken away. I will give you my blood for my beauty, or for the mountains.
We'll go ahead and play the third video. This is the third and final one.
In some cases, someday, chopsticks, day, maple day, mother, insect, lion, weeping, rich, mountain, ah. While afternoon, while seedlings in the evening, yes. Watch, only, see only, treetops, I see only in this case. I am also a child and a friend of mine. I'm afraid in the 61st year. I am my uncle, and Uncle Lee, the bad of the Roses School. If you go, the women are beautiful. You are the face of your father, and you are not alone. She went to your uncle, the fairest of women, and she turned to your uncle with you. And you will go as far as the rivers that go up from the bathing, that they are calmed, fit, and drunk, but not in them. And your men as them who have risen from the bath. They all think are suitable, and they do not have a bride. I do not know my mind is satisfied, my people are generous. I did not know my mind was a generous chariot. The one who turned away from me was rebellious. He is like the goat who has come out of the hill. Your eyes against me, he was a goat who had slipped. I saw my mind as a joke, a curse on a nation as a pilgrim. Beauty as you like, as a Slav, her mother. You will remove your eyes from me, for they have prevailed on me. Your hair is like a band of goats that stay away. Kept my eyes away from me because they overcame my hair, the same as the pressure of goats this path down. In my blood I will go down to his garden, to the groves of the flesh, to the ribs, to the gardens, and to the gleam, to the thorns. And my uncle, he went to the name, the gardens, and the picking, the roses.
That's fascinating. Wow.
As I'm watching this with you, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead.
as I'm watching this with you, I find myself reflecting on repetition and like the vitality of repetition in life, from things as fundamental as like the heartbeat to the sort of function of repetition in poetry, and the way that repetition was generated in this particular piece. So I mentioned that I used machine translation to process a number of poems, but what I would often do is that I would use multiple machine translators, and so it would arrive at multiple products from the same original text. And that gave me the opportunity to work with some nuanced repetition and then some striking differences, even though it was beginning with the same source text. The machine translators were arriving at very different products. I'm wondering if maybe you have some thoughts like about repetition.
Yeah, I think so. Like I notice, especially with me, when I'm writing, a lot of times I'll go back to the same line or I'll go to the same patterns. And I think that the rhythm is fundamental to the poem itself. It's like adding, even if it's not necessarily following a paced mode, it's like the repetition of the language, causes it to be kind of nuanced and gives it a little bit of gives it a regularity that people can kind of incorporate in as they're reading. They can actually feel it more strong than they would feel it if it was just like haphazardly thrown together or something. I think there's been like experiments with some of the ideas that have randomness, like Jackson McLeod, for instance. He used to do things where he would have words and he would roll his dice and he would just randomly throw. And when he'd roll the dice, he would say, okay, 6, and then he'd pick the 6th word out or whatever. And so there was a lot of chance involved in that. And so it wasn't really put together in a regular way. And a lot of his poetry, it was all just haphazard, And so I think that the difference there, it's like, it's an experiment with what can happen versus when you use a regular pattern, it creates a sort of torch for the reader, in my opinion. Like, it kind of, just to me, like, I like it when I'm reading a poem and it kind of like settles in you in that way. Regularity can do that. I think it, I love looking at a page where the words are all strewn around and, like, I don't know, like Ferlinghetti or something like that. I love that. But I also love when I'm reading a poem and it kind of like lulls you a little bit and moves you in that way, where you're reading it and there's a regular set pattern or a regular refrain or something in the poem that, brings you to the nuanced conclusion. Those are my thoughts. It's very fun to experiment with this. Poetry is such a wide art. It's like it's anything. It's like from Jackson McLeod to Ferlinghetti to anything. All kinds of different approaches you can take. So, what would you say today in conclusion of the program to our viewers and to fellow readers? Put you on the spot.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for your attention. I would encourage you to read, like, and if you can, I mean, obviously translation is not the same as the original source text, but if you can get your hands on translations of texts that come from other countries, from other cultures, I find that those can be really enriching.
Would you like to say thank you or give any shout outs to friends, family, supporters, fans?
I should probably thank everybody on the faculty at that MFA program. Guy Bennett, Marissa Matarazzo, Jen Hoffer, everybody that was involved.
We're looking forward to reassemblances.
Yeah, the cohort as well, and the editor and the publisher, Mike Zone. I'm going to leave people out.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm familiar with Dumpster Fire Press. I think I follow them on Instagram.
Okay.
I follow quite a few presses. It's good material to like see what people are doing, and how their different styles and approaches in editorial design and things like that are really fun to see the different presses and what they do. Yeah. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, I wish we had more time. I would ask you about the poet Brooke Plummer. I don't know if you've encountered her work, but so many people.
I don't think so. Well, yeah, if anybody else that you would like to be on the show, let them know and pass my email along. Definitely schedule them in. So thank you so much.
Talk with you, Dustin. Yeah, thank you.
You too. So this has been World Inkers Network. We had Edward Wells, and they discussed their book Reassemblances. So take a look at that book when it comes out. It sounds fascinating. I love those videos. Amazing material. Love the poetry. I love the visuals. So if you happen to have a little extra cash out there, guys, we need some money for our programming. We want to keep this running as freely and as accessible as possible. So please, without further ado, go ahead and go to paypal.me/nyparrot. That's paypal.me/nyparrot. If you have anything, $5, $500, $5,000, $5 million, we don't care. You just send us some money. We'd love you. We'll announce you on the show. And if you want to be on the show, we definitely want to hear from you. And you can reach out to me, Dustin Pickering, at literarycorner@newyorkparrot.com. That's a good place to send your paragraph bio, a sample of your work, and a headshot so we can get you on the show and get a flyer created to promote your particular show. So we're doing this daily, remember that. So we'll make sure we get a good scheduled day for you, regardless of what time or date you're wanting to work with us. So we will make sure to get you on. And, remember that we have World Inkers Monthly Magazine just released its March edition. And so we'll definitely want you to take a look at that. It's on Amazon. It's a nice, sleek, full color edition. Some wonderful interviews with Carlo Parcelli, Ron Whitehead, Beat Poet Laureate. So, all kinds of interesting materials, literary materials, some articles, human rights articles, all kinds of things. And so if you want to contribute to the next edition, which is coming out this coming beginning of this month, next month, we want to hear from you on women's issues and their socioeconomic status and cultural status as a women and female empowerment. We definitely want to hear from you on those issues and get you in the magazine. So we were looking forward to that for International Women's Month. So we want to help boost our women people. We love these guys. So we love you guys out there. So keep up the good work. And if you would like to be on the program again, I'd love to hear from you at literarycorner@newyorkparrot.com. Now, I know some of us right now are dry on inspiration, but don't worry, it's going to come back. Just get that pen and ink flowing, get a book out, start reading. And remember, World Inkers Network wants you as a subscriber, and like, share, and comment on our material, and make sure you get the word out for us. We love you guys. Get to writing. Thanks for joining us today. Are you curious about financial literacy? Then take a look at Professor Anthony Rivecchio's new program on Parrot TV. It's called Financial Focus University. This is an excellent program to learn about questions related to your own finances post-COVID, if how you can manage your money, how you can work with your tax situation. And this is an excellent and informative discussion of financial literacy. With Professor Anthony Rivecchio, your financial problems will be solved at Parrot TV with Financial Focus University.